Hello. In my previous module, I covered how good leadership and good organizational performance are highly correlated. In this module, I will try to answer a couple of questions that I often get from management or HR professionals. Question number one, our business seems to be doing okay. Is leadership development still necessary? And question two, is leadership development worth the cost? I'll try to cover that in this module. Hidden and often intangible costs of poor leadership. Gallup organization has been conducting employee engagement studies or polls over several decades. All of these surveys say that less than a third of employees are engaged and committed at work. Only 1 out of 3 workers is engaged. What causes 2/3 of employees in companies to be disengaged? What is the primary reason for this shocking figure? Simply put, poor leadership. Poor leadership results in 80% reduction in employee engagement as compared with the employee engagement numbers of good leaders. That is the conclusion of a study by Zenger and Folkman. Good leaders, those who are in the top 10th percentile of their peer group, and poor leaders are the ones who are in the bottom 10th percentile of their peer group. Good leaders have 5 times more engagement numbers as compared to poor leaders. Want more engaged employees? Develop your managers into world-class leaders. The hidden costs of poor leadership. Leadership also impacts revenue numbers. Zenger-Folkman studies have concluded that sales generated by top leaders were twice that of the sales generated by an average leader. However, what is the shocker? The sales generated by the bottom 10th percentile or poor leaders were 83% less. Good leaders generate 6 times the sales or revenue numbers as compared with the bad leaders. Want to increase your sales? Develop your managers into world-class leaders. Here's another study by Rosen and Brown. They scoured through various studies done on more than 3,000 US companies. They found that on an average, the current leaders were utilizing only half of their human capital. It is hard to believe, but poor leadership costs companies half of their human capital. Companies pay full salary to utilize only half of their most important asset, which is the human capital. Want to double productivity of your people? Develop your managers into world-class leaders. Here is another research by DDI. They found that poor leadership causes employee dissent, dissatisfaction, turnover, poor morale, and bad teamwork. The direct cost of a single poor leader to a company was estimated at $126,000 per year. Single bad leader costs companies $126,000 a year. But that's not all. What about the cascading effect of reduced engagement and productivity of the people down the line? If the indirect cost of reduction in downstream productivity were counted, the cost of a single poor leader may exceed more than $500,000 per year. Bad leadership has a cascading effect all the way down to the frontline employees. Often HR and senior executives tell me some version of the following statement. We would like to develop our leaders, but leadership development is expensive. My question to them is, have you considered the cost to not develop your leaders and continue poor leadership practices? I tell them about the dialogue between the CEO and CFO. The CFO asks the CEO, what happens if we invest in developing our people and then they leave us? The wise CEO replies, what happens if we don't develop our people and they decide to stay with us? The same applies to leadership development. Often the costs of poor leadership are intangible, but continuing poor leadership practices is a definite drag on employee engagement, sales, and performance. Comparison of good versus not so good leadership. Poor employee engagement and high turnover versus increased employee engagement and retention. Lack of clarity regarding direction, priorities, and roles versus increased sales and revenues. Turf war and conflicts versus better team cohesion. Poor decision making versus responsiveness to change and innovation. Negative impact on revenue and customer service number versus increased profits and customer loyalty. The equation is simple. Good leadership equals high employee engagement equals high performance. The flip side is bad leadership equals dissatisfied employees equals poor performance. Poor leadership has a detrimental effect on employee engagement in all aspects of business. In the next module, I will try to answer the following questions that I often get from HR professionals. Is leadership development worth the cost? Do you know how much amount of money is spent worldwide on leadership development? Are leadership development programs delivering results, and why or why not? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next module.